Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, Shay I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten, where we cover every single Big Ten team here on the Big Ten Huddle. We took Sunday off. Zach, how was your Easter? Did you have a good Easter? Did you enjoy some good food, some family time? How was your Easter?
It was great. Our church did they did a sunrise service. I didn't go to the sunrise, but after that they did a whole church wide breakfast, and
Nice.
so we got to celebrate together, fellowship together, yeah, and just got to think and pray and reflect on the resurrection. It was awesome. So
There you go.
really
There you
good.
go.
How about
Can't
you?
complain about that. Yeah, had a good Easter. Took a long nap after church and then went over to the in-laws' house and the in-laws played with the kids for pretty much the entire time. So you know what? I can't complain. It was a good time. It was a good time. We want to have an awesome show for you today. So we're gonna be covering the transfer portal a lot in this show. We're gonna start off with Nico and his brother and Joey Aguilar leaving UCLA and Joey Aguilar going to Tennessee. We'll start with that. Then we'll get into some transfer portal intel, talk about mainly Penn State and Ohio State. There will be some UCLA talk as well. And then finally, we'll end with our transfer portal winners and losers so far. But these are only based on who they've lost because the transfer portal is obviously not done yet. So we can't give winners and losers overall. These are only based on who has won and who has lost, or these is based on who has won and who has lost based on who they lost into the transfer portal. So let's see who we got here with us before we get started. Got Philip. He says ILL. Eric finishes with the INI. Good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. John, good evening, gents. John, appreciate you being here. And then Philip says Michael Jackson the third to Purdue. It's a thriller. There you go.
I love it. I love it.
Billy Tuesday saying howdy, folks. Howdy, Billy Tuesday. Appreciate you being here. All right, Zach. I think we got some good stuff to talk about, so we might as well just get right into it, right?
Let's do it. Let's do
All
it.
right. Everybody's favorite subject, because it's not been talked about enough. Nico Iamaleava is headed to UCLA. Now, he's not actually there yet. Tennessee does have a semester system. I think classes for them end in 2 or 3 weeks, is what I looked up. But if things go well, there might be a possibility he could get into UCLA in the quarters system there. So he could actually possibly enroll before the end of the school year. I think that's kind of crazy that semesters ends in time for you to go to be enrolled in quarters at another school, but that's neither here nor there. We're not trying to talk about academics as much as we're talking about Nico to UCLA. Madden Iamaleava is expected to go to UCLA. Last I saw, that was not a done deal yet, but it does seem to be trending that way, especially with him just randomly entering the transfer portal and Arkansas not knowing it until it actually happened. And then, Zach, we got our first trade ever in college football. Joey Aguilar to Tennessee. Now, I know the NCAA stinks, Zach, and I know we have to start off with that. We will, but let's try to focus more on UCLA and Tennessee here, this whole saga. Go ahead and start with your NCAA stinks because I know you need to get it out of you. But then go into the whole situation here, Nico to UCLA and that kind of stuff.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm starting to just I feel so jaded by the NCAA at this point that John can do it for me. That's it. John's got it. Hashtag NCAA stinks. Okay, we got it out there.
There we go. There we go. Philip is actually going in the exact direction I was. And yes, Billy, I'm kind of Iamaleava out at this point too. I just figure we need to talk about it. At some point, we'll redo our quarterback rankings with Nico in it and see where we're at there. But Zach, who do you think won this trade? UCLA getting Nico and possibly his brother as well? Or do you think Tennessee won this trade getting Joey Aguilar?
So I mean, if you're just going off talent, I mean UCLA won in a landslide. But quarterback isn't always just about talent. I don't want to speculate, but all I'm going to say is this whole thing, like I don't know what to think about the Iamaleava family, but it just has felt shady the whole time. And I'm like, if you have a guy on your team that's going to hold out during spring practice just to get a little bit more money or just to get something to get leverage in a sport that's not customary. Like, I get that's where the sport has gone. There's no regulation. NCAA stinks. I get that. But my question is, you have this guy then coming in, doesn't know your system, which I know Aguilar is going to have the same problem at Tennessee. But also, like, you have this guy who stood up, completely distanced himself from his one team just to get a little bit more to go to UCLA. Like, what's going to happen if there are issues there? Like, is he gonna sit out with if the NIL doesn't deliver, like some rumors have suggested? I don't know, and I think that's the biggest struggle with this to me is Aguilar went in, he competed, everybody thought he was going to be QB1, and now all of a sudden he's getting replaced by this other guy who he in a sense has to leave. But Nico was the clear number one guy. He learned the offense. He was there, and then he left his team high and dry. Regardless if that was his intention or not. I'm not trying to bag on his character. I'm just saying that's what happened.
It's a bad reflection of character, whether his character is bad or not. It's a poor reflection of it. And in these situations, we don't know Nico personally. I mean, some people do, but you and I don't know Nico personally or anything like that. We don't know the family personally. There's a lot of rumors around this family and everything that goes on with it. Like I said before, I don't want to outright call a family greedy, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And basically the entire recruitment of Nico and his brother Madden have been sketchy, to say the least. And so that's my thing is, like, to me, obviously UCLA won in the talent, in the talent portion of this thing. Like, to me, there's no doubt UCLA won in this area, especially getting two of these Iamaleava brothers. You get a guy who's going to work for you now this season, probably go to the NFL, and then another guy who can be there for you who maybe is similar talented or less. We'll see. But to me, they definitely won in that area. But I'm completely with you. Say UCLA makes the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is he going to, is Nico going to say, pay me because I made the playoffs, or I don't play for your team, pay me, or I don't play in the bowl game? Is something like that going to come up? Maybe, maybe not. But based off the information that we have, it's unreliable to assume that Nico is just going to play every single football game for you, which is absolutely insane to think. Yeah. But that's where we're at right now in college football, especially with this situation.
Yeah. I asked Kevin from Bruins Source, one of the UCLA, the UCLA podcast on the College Huddle network. And he responded, high risk, high reward. DeShaun Foster needed something to jumpstart things, and now he's got it. If the drama is too much, UCLA wins 5 games again and is looking for a coach in 2 years. If we can find an OL and overachieve, it's a chance to win back fans and donors. And I think that's a smart way to look at it. I think DeShaun Foster needed a splash. He needs something to build upon. My concern, and it's going back to what we've been talking about, DeShaun Foster does not have a lot of coaching cachet. Like, if Josh Heupel can't get him to stabilize, and at a team that went to the playoff last year, by the way, do we really think that UCLA, who's playing second fiddle to USC, who has not been very good, do we really think that a new head coach can really ground him and help him to be committed to the team? Like that, particularly with all the noise outside. I think that's another layer to this. If we're talking about Nico going to Alabama and Nick Saban being like, with Nick Saban in particular, Nick Saban be like, dude, you pull that, you're gone. I'm like, right. Okay, yeah, great. But you're not just talking about, it's not just that Nico went to UCLA, but Nico went to UCLA with a young head coach that's still learning how to be a head coach. So
and a young offensive coordinator too.
Yeah. So
I mean, he's not young. It's not like he's in his late 20s, but he's not been a coach for all that long. I think his first coaching job was at James Madison, then Indiana, and then now this is his first full like offensive coordinator gig. Last year he was co-offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I really like Tino Sinceri. I've said it multiple times, but I mean, you're the man now. You are the head coach of the offense. How's this going to work under you?
Yeah. So to give an actual answer, I would say that UCLA won, but I'm not sure anybody. I'm not sure anybody won, if I'm honest.
Caitlin says he's young though, so hope he has a chance to rebuild his reputation throughout the rest of his college/pro career. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of where I stand on all of this, kind of summarizing it all up, is it's like the past says that this could be a bad situation, but if Nico comes in, plays well, goes to the NFL, and shows that he's not drama or anything like that, it's a lot of things are going to be fixed here. And you get to do that at home, back home, near your family, near people that care about you, love you. I think that's huge. So, all right. I agree. I think UCLA wins this one. I think Tennessee lost in the football department, but I think their fans probably won for like their coach sticking up for themselves. But I also kind of agree with Urban Meyer. It's like, are you going to agree you're winning when you're 3-3?
Yep.
If the SEC is as hard as everybody says it is, are you really going to go out and be a playoff team with a leftover quarterback from the Big Ten?
Yep. That's good. Well, not only that, but a leftover quarterback who has no experience in your system.
Exactly.
Missed the entire spring.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Before we do that, do want to give notice to Asian Posh Doreen. She says, hey, JR. Hey, Zach. Hey, Doreen. We appreciate you being here.
Doreen.
Thank you so much. Add to the conversation, Doreen. Let us know your thoughts on Nico and everything. And also, people can add to the conversation. Oh, I'm going to take this down. By giving us your thoughts on Trebor Pena. Is he done with Penn State? Zach, Trebor Pena took a visit to Penn State on Friday. He has not committed to Penn State. There was a thought out there that he just needed some time and he might take some visits elsewhere, but I got to be honest, Zach, I don't like the suitors that are out there for him. You're looking at Miami, USC, UCLA. I believe he has a visit scheduled for Miami. I'm not sure about USC or UCLA yet. Pretty sure those are showing interest in trying to get him to visit. But I think in this recruitment, we're going to see if Trebor Pena really wants $2 million or not, right? I mean, this was what was coming out of Penn State was, okay, he doesn't actually want $2 million. That was Fran Brown, just trying to make him seem bad and give him a bad look. It's like, okay, but if he commits to Miami right after his visit, yeah, I'm going to say he probably wanted the money. Now, is that truly why he left? Who knows? But at least that's most likely why he would commit to Miami. I do think these older players, because he only has 1 year of eligibility left, I do think these older players are a little bit more patient. So I don't think them leaving and not committing to you is as bad as maybe some other situations are. Especially in this one where there's really not any other wide receivers available in the transfer portal. So it's not like Pena is battling for anybody here. But I will say it does look bad that Pena got through the weekend, did not commit, and now he is scheduling another visit, possibly more after that. I think Penn State probably lost out on this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if he commits later on. What are your thoughts?
I think he's going to the U. I think he wants every bit of that $2 million if he can get it or whatever he can get. And if we know anything about Miami, they're willing to pay. Speaking of which, I don't know if you heard, I want to
say something really fast.
Yeah, go for it.
We did not mention Luke Altmaier with the UCLA stuff because we are going to mention him later. So he will be a part of our winners and losers segment. So yes, shout out to Illinois and Luke Altmaier sticking around. Stay tuned for more talk on that. Sorry, Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I don't know if you saw, we like to rip Lane Kiffin on this show. I think it's our favorite pastime. But dude, he ripped Carson Beck so well. And I just feel like it had to say, found out Miami paid Carson Beck like $4.3 million. And Lane Kiffin was like, did they not see him against us? And I was just like, yeah. And I think the point is Miami overpays. I'm not sure Trebor Pena is. I think Trebor Pena is a good player.
Well,
I'm
and
not sure.
did you hear what the freshman like safety said that went there this past year?
No.
Oh, so Zakai Peterson, I think his name is. He was an Ohio State recruit, and they lost out to Miami with him.
Oh, Zaquan Patterson. Zaquan
Zaquan
Patterson.
Patterson, yes. He is transferring after 1 year at Miami, and one of the things he said, and I'm not quoting him word for word here, but essentially what he said was like, I want to go someplace where football is serious. Talked about how guys are just late to practice, nobody cares, they don't give effort, it's not developing, you're not improving, and it's like, well, yeah, you went someplace where everybody just got a bag, you know? Like that's what happens at Miami. It's no secret. Mario Cristobal gets guys in there, gives him a bag, and then he tries to get guys more rushing yards, and then he loses games for it. This is what Miami football is, and it's why even if they do make the playoffs, they're not going to be an actual relevant team and actually trying to win a national championship because they don't have the buy-in, they don't have the development, they don't have the players who care enough. Those players got their bags, and that's what matters most. You had probably your best quarterback option you're going to get in a long time in Cam Ward, and you couldn't even make the playoffs with him.
Yep. Couldn't even win the ACC when the ACC was down.
Couldn't even get to the ACC championship game.
Yeah.
SMU made it to the championship game before you did.
Yeah.
Mario.
Oh man.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no. I don't. I will. No, I tolerate all Miami. I have a few friends who are Miami fans, and I really appreciate. They're good about it, but many of them are often talking junk that they have no right to at all. Anyway, I think Penn State fans should be concerned. Like, I don't think they're getting him. And I think Miami can pay him. I think USC could pay him. I don't think I think UCLA is probably out. But I also think even though Miami, to your point, is struggling, I still think Miami is a player in playoff contention, and he might be able to get more money. So
yeah. No, for sure. For sure. We have John asking if we saw that Indiana got Kellen Wyatt from Maryland. Kellen Wyatt last year had 19 solo tackles, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. I did not mention Wyatt or a linebacker as is he more of an edge or is he more of a linebacker? ESPN just has him listed as a linebacker, but I think he's more of an edge. Maybe. I'll have to look it up.
247 has him as an edge.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, that's what Indiana needed. Talked about it. Need an edge. They are missing out. It looks like on Nitro Tuggle, but I don't really think Nitro Tuggle is the one they wanted. So as far as I'm concerned, good move by Indiana. Hopefully you have enough wide receiver depth there to get through not getting a wide receiver so far. They might get one still. Who knows?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Boise State linebacker Andrew Simpson visited USC a few days ago. I think last weekend it was, and he is hearing from Penn State and UCLA. I would say this is kind of a similar situation. The fact that he did not commit yet makes me believe that Andrew Simpson not going to USC. Also, USC got Tymir Robinson from Penn State, so I think they probably are suited there with him coming in. But Penn State and UCLA could definitely use a linebacker. Now, I thought Penn State would go after some more linebacker depth, but Andrew Simpson, I think he could start at Penn State. I mean, you got DeLuca, you got Rojas, like you got some guys there, but Andrew Simpson could come in and he could possibly start for Penn State. I know we were just talking about a receiver that would be better for them, I think, because that fills more of a hole. But you asked me, Andrew Simpson coming in for Penn State, that would be good for them. UCLA as well. Now, there's a lot of other teams too. We're going to talk primarily about Penn State and UCLA because it's a Big Ten show. Like Texas A&M, I think some other SEC schools are in on him too. But if Penn State is able to pull this off and get him there, it would be huge for them, huge for their defense, and just add one more element for the rotation of their linebackers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, he probably wouldn't, because of the way that they're constructing the defense, I don't know if he'd start, just because it's going to be the 4-2-5, at least for base. But it is interesting to see where he might end up, and I think it could be a Big Ten school, whether it's USC, Penn State, or UCLA. I honestly that I feel like the biggest need would be UCLA or USC. Like he would fill immediate holes there, but I think you're right. He would be probably the third linebacker or the fourth linebacker for Penn State if he came in at minimum. Minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as far as I'm concerned, as much rotation and depth as you can get in the linebacker room for Penn State, I mean, I think he has a chance at starting. I'm not trying to dog Rojas or DeLuca here, but I think he's got a chance. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Let's see. Got a few comments really fast. David Greenshield saying, "What's up, guys? Any D-line news on Ohio State? We're gonna get to that here in just a minute, David. Don't worry. I had something in here. Where is it? Where is it? What did I have? Oh, Billy Tuesday says, "Don't see Miami beating Clemson. You think Clemson's the favorite to win the ACC?"
Yes.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
Especially with all that returning. I think they have the most returning production next year.
Yeah. That they have the best quarterback. I think they have the best receiving core. And I think their depth. I like their roster this year. And I think they're gonna be better than a year ago. Like I think they're gonna be legit contenders this year.
Yeah, I think they're actually a top 10 team this year. I don't think they were last year, but
No.
they could actually be at this next year. All right, let's talk Ohio State. Ohio State is eyeing 3 major transfer portal targets, Zach. They are eyeing Beau Atkinson from North Carolina. Seems like Bill Belichick right now is tossing out the good talent rather than the bad talent out of North Carolina right now. That's a little bit of an interesting situation. But he visited Ohio State on Monday, just got the RPM by, I believe it was Steve Wiltfong, or it was one of the on-3 guys to go to Ohio State, so that's good for them. However, Ohio State did lose out on Murad Watson, the Syracuse freshman All-American from last year. He was I think he had 1 sack, 30-some tackles last year, but they do have some other guys in their sights. Troy Pikes, the main one, he was a freshman last year at Georgia Southern, looking to bring him in. I don't think he's an immediate contributor, but maybe I'm wrong. Georgia was after him too, so maybe Georgia and Ohio State see something that I don't see. But the number 1 defensive tackle in the portal, Bernard Gooden, is available. We'll talk more about if they should go after him. And then the Bucknut staff has identified Houston safety A.G. Hulsey as an Ohio State target. Right now, it looks like their competition for them is Florida State targeting him. So, Zach, who would you like to talk about first? Atkinson, the safety, or the defensive tackle situation?
I think it'd be helpful to talk about Atkinson since it seems like he's trending that way, trending towards Ohio State, which I think that's a big deal because even though he's not the nose tackle that they want, I do think he helps that line with depth. And I think it does. I wonder if he allows them to be more creative on the defensive line for some of their more exotic pass rush packages. Because I just think he brings a different skill set. We were talking off air, but he's bigger than Caden Curry, which I think is a big deal. So I think
really
it gives him
the run stopping. That's a huge thing for Ohio State right now. We'll talk more about that when we get to Bernard Gooden, but he's a bigger kind of defensive end that I think would be a better run stopper. That's the problem right now with Caden Curry and CJ Hicks is neither of them are really like I honestly think Logan George had a possibility of starting over Caden Curry just because of the run stopping, and that's what the team needs. Doesn't necessarily mean Logan George is a better defensive end than Caden Curry. It's just what you need because you don't have that interior defensive line depth. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just thought that's a big need that they have. And I think that it seems likely that will happen within the next week or within the next few days since the portal window is only till Friday.
Billy says, haven't heard anything on the Buckeye beat about the USF defensive lineman Bernard Gooden. Yeah, sorry if I didn't explain that. I haven't heard anything either. I'm offering the question, should Ohio State go after him. He's the number one defensive tackle available in the transfer portal. So let's talk about that. Bernard Gooden, obviously Troy Pikes, he is coming on a visit here at the end of the week, but Bernard Gooden, I believe he's about 6'2", 6'3", 280 pounds. Seems a little light for an interior defensive tackle. However, that's about the same size of Edric Houston, who I think is a little bit bigger than him. But if you ask me, Zach, Ohio State, like I said, they seemed concerned about stopping the run. If you bring Bernard Gooden in, that would obviously help in some of your pass rushing situations. He's a 3 tech, in my opinion. So I think that would be helpful, but I don't think that helps with the rushing or run defense situation you find yourselves in. It really doesn't seem like Tywone Malone or some of the backups behind Caden McDonald are really ready for that yet. And as we know, one of the biggest reasons Ohio State excelled on the goal line last season was because of their depth at the defensive tackle spot. You could have Tyleik Williams, Ty Hamilton, and Caden McDonald all out there. You don't have that luxury this year. You don't have the big guys behind him that are dominant at the line of scrimmage. I mean, Tywone Malone is like a redshirt senior, and he was getting pushed around by freshmen in the spring game. Not good.
Yeah,
not a good situation for the interior of your defensive line. So, I mean, if he's good, I'd say go after him, but he is not what Ohio State needs, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I'll counter this. If he gets into Ohio State's strength and conditioning and they put him on the Ohio State diet, maybe he gains 10, 15 pounds quick. It's still not what you need, but that Pantoni and what's the guy's name? The strength and conditioning guy.
Oh yeah, I'm forgetting it too.
Why can't I remember his name?
Anyway, go ahead.
I used to know that.
Will say it.
Yeah. Billy, help us out. But like, he will be upgrading from a group of 5 nutrition and weight program to one of the premier ones in the country. Marotti. How do I forget Mickey Marotti? Goodness.
Thanks, Billy. Yeah, no, I think obviously that could help his situation, but I mean, if this was the winter window, I'd feel much better about it. This isn't though. This is the spring window. You're playing ball in what, 3 months?
4 months. Yeah,
4 months.
Yeah.
You're playing ball here soon, so you better get ready. And there's only so much you can put on, but without trying to turn it into muscle too. You don't just want a slob out there who's got a whole bunch of weight on him. You need to actually have muscle with that as well. So yeah, Ohio State finds themselves in a bit of a situation here. Zach, I don't want to say we were right to Ohio State fans. I will victory lap a little bit, but there were Ohio State fans claiming the defense was going to be just as good as last year, and now they're wanting to fire their defensive line coach. So, quite the shift from better defense than the number one defense last year to fire the defensive line coach. We have no depth.
This is why,
and it's not all of them. It's not all of them. It's just some. Sorry, go ahead.
But like, and I need to say this to myself too. Like, we need to have patience and better expectations for our coaching staff. Just saying. I'm speaking as an Ohio State fan in this current moment. Like, Larry Johnson is kind of the GOAT at defensive line. So like, let's cut him some slack. Also, it's because of his defensive line that Ohio State won a national championship last year. So let's back off.
Jack Sawyer, strip sack was a big deal there. Big deal.
Yeah.
So are you of the opinion then that Larry Johnson, defensive line coach for Ohio State, he can do no wrong? He's good no matter what. You keep him on until he's ready to go, or are you kind of like, it's one season, he just lost his entire defensive line. Like, let's just be cool with it. Mish is asking, do you know why Penn State isn't going after defensive tackles in the portal? There's just not very many of them.
Yeah.
And honestly, the price tag for defensive tackles right now is massive. I mean, my guess is that Penn State doesn't have the NIL, or they aren't confident enough in it. That would be my guess. Yeah. But
that's also not
the hard thing right now. Is like, everybody wants defensive tackles. Everybody wants defensive linemen right now.
And also, like, Penn State's not. I don't mean to drag Miami, because like, Miami has a very clear strategy. I don't think it's a great one, but like, they're going to pay, and they're going to pay regardless. Penn State is not like that. And quite honestly, Ohio State's not like that either. I mean, they have
Right.
more money to play with. They have more, I think, more big money donors. But Penn State, they don't. I think they have money, but I don't think it's the same. It's not the same budget. And they're also just going to be more choosy because that's who they are as a program.
Yeah.
So I so I think that's a big piece of it. But I think to your point too, like who's the rock star defensive tackle that people are going to take? Like it's there's not a lot of big names out there. I think that's a good insight by you.
Yeah, I mean, your big names right now are like the Vanderbilt defensive tackle, which I'm not trying to say anything terrible about Vanderbilt, but they've not, necessarily been known for having the best defensive lines in the nation for years upon years. The Vanderbilt defensive tackle, freshman at Syracuse, and then who was the other one that Ohio State was going after? There was another one that Ohio State was going after too. Like it's not like there is a redshirt senior or anything in the portal right now, and this is one of the biggest issues for Ohio State is like this freshman All-American that Syracuse has is like, well, I want to go somewhere, get paid, and get promised playing time. Well, is Ohio State going to go out there and overpay for somebody? Like, are you going to pay him more than you are currently paying Edric Houston or Caden McDonald? No, probably not. And I would imagine Penn State is going through the same stuff. So it's not only can you afford the guy out of the portal, but also can you afford to pay the guys on your team in addition to the guy in the
Yeah.
portal? Because I guarantee you bring a guy in to be your third string defensive tackle. If he's making more than your first and second defensive tackle, that's not going to be great. Or I
Nope.
shouldn't say third string. You're too deep defensive tackle. It's not going to be great.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, and Maryland kind of has learned that firsthand with a 5-star. I think that the rumor was a 5-star offensive line was going to get more money than all the other offensive linemen, and the starting offensive line is like, all right, peace, we're done, and like that's left Maryland in the lurch a little bit, which we'll talk about later. I think back to your question about Larry Johnson. I don't think it's he can do no wrong. It's that I think the last few years have been weird. And I think he deserves a year or two to like see, okay, is his age really becoming a factor? Or was the problem actually the mix match between him and the defensive coordinator? Jim Knowles.
yeah.
Was the problem between and there's been a lot of smoke around the idea that the Jack just really screwed up recruiting because they didn't actually have any film on it because they never used it because it didn't mesh with how Larry Johnson taught defensive line. So I don't know how much I buy into that, but Billy Tuesday said it great. Like the D-line recruiting has been down for Ohio State since Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau's class. And quite honestly, JT and Jack, up until their senior year, actually up until the playoffs, kind of underperformed, right? They're going to be 3rd, 4th round picks. They were the number 3 and 4 recruits in the country, according to 247. And so is that a development issue? I don't know, because certainly Larry Johnson has a really good track record over the course of his tenure, but I wouldn't say he can do no wrong, but I think he deserves a bit of, he deserves a little slack, and I'm willing to give it to him for another year or two.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the safety. AJ Halsey, I believe is how you pronounce it. Halkey, one of those two. He is apparently somebody that said he would be interested in Ohio State, and Ohio State has explored an option here to possibly get to him. So we'll see. This is a lot of smoke right now, kind of rumors going on, nothing definite yet. We don't have a tweet or anything definite from like an insider yet, but I do think it's interesting to talk about because Ohio State does need to fill their kind of free safety slot. And AJ was a good safety last year in the pass defense. Had 5 interceptions. Did a good job at Houston. He was very good at New Mexico. I think he was there for 2 years, and he could come to Ohio State, play alongside Caleb Downs. You could have another very good safety duo in Caleb Downs and Halsey next year if Ohio State goes after him and tries to get him. To me, it'll depend on how they feel about Malik Hartford and Jalen. What's his last name? The other guy, Jalen McLean.
McLean.
I apologize, Jalen McLean. It'll kind of depend on how they feel about him. But maybe Halsey is just that good that it's like, look, we believe in these guys, but this guy's just that good and he wants to come to Ohio State. We'll see. Do you think they need to go after another safety here, Zach, or do you are you a believer in Malik Hartford, Jalen McLean to come in here?
I don't think they need another safety, but like if he's good enough, why not? Like you could always use more depth. You do have like it's McLean and Hartford. Hartford has had some good reps, but it's still unknowns. Like you had Lathan Ransom back there for 3. Well, it felt like an eternity with him. So like I think for depth, sure, but I'm not sure it's like. I think when you're talking about Ohio State needs, the only need is a defensive tackle. I think everything else is a want.
I do think that the replacement for Jordan Hancock is not being talked about enough. I think Lorenzo Styles is going to do a good job as a slot corner, but I don't think he's Jordan Hancock. And even Jordan Hancock is not going to be drafted very high. I think he was the most underappreciated player for Ohio State last year with what he was able to do to let Caleb Downs kind of play freely between the safeties and the linebackers. I don't know if they trust Lorenzo Styles enough to do that. He looked pretty good in the spring game, so I don't want to take anything away from him. But is he as smart of a player? Is he as versatile of a player as a Jordan Hancock? We'll see. So really as far as I'm concerned, that's what you're looking at more than Malik Hartford and Jalen McLean. Do we have somebody that can play back enough to help in the pass coverage? Because Lathan Ransom was a hitter as much as Caleb Downs was. He did well in the free safety spot, but he was known for getting downhill and hitting the running back in the run defense.
Yeah. So. It's interesting. You said that, and I'm like, I wonder if a lot of people look at Shaun Wade with a lot of like they look back and I don't think they appreciate him as much as they should. Because while Shaun Wade was never a number one corner, as a slot corner, he was so good. And he made that 2019 defense so good. And I think in a lot of ways, your point about Jordan Hancock, one of the most underappreciated players, I think, on the national championship team for Ohio State. And that's a really good point.
One comment I want to address before we hit our commercial break, and then we'll get to our transfer portal winners and losers. Nico says this guy hates Miami. I don't know who this guy is, but you should say these guys. Yes, we do both very much dislike Miami. So correct. These guys, Nico.
Yep. All
right, we're going to hit commercial break really fast. We'll come back. We'll talk about transfer portal winners and losers. Be right back. Have you ever wanted to watch all 22 film, that film the coaches watch? Well, now you can. Introducing the Coaches Film Room. Over at Minutes to Sports, former college coach Zach Smith breaks down film of the most relevant teams in college football with a bit of a Big Ten lead. It's not free, so you'll need to sign up for the Colonel tier, which is $25 a month, but I can attest to you that it is far more worth it than that. With about 4 to 8 games per week, this is worth so much more money, not to mention Zach's analysis, making you a smarter football fan. Go check it out. The links are in the description, minutestosports.com. You won't be sorry. Back here on the Big Ten Huddle, Philip, you could not have said it better. The SEC and ACC, just as bad as the NCAA, in my opinion. All the C's. Don't want to see it.
They all stink. I want to go back real quick. You're talking about we don't like Miami. I do want to make this point about Miami. I think college football is better when Miami is good. And here's my rationale. I think Miami at its peak was like the best villain in college football. And like
So you
Alabama,
think college football needs a villain?
I think for the story, yeah.
Okay.
Like think about it. Like, why is the 2002, I'm speaking as an Ohio State fan, but why is the 2002 national championship so well remembered?
It's because of the underdog story.
It's the underdog story, but like who did they beat?
Yeah, they
They
beat down the main villain. You're right. Yeah.
yeah, the main villain who had planned a victory party the night before and like told everybody about it. And I agree with Doreen. Ohio State broke them.
They thought that game was going to be Georgia TCU.
Yeah, they did. And quite honestly, it probably should have. Like looking back, like Krenzel as the quarterback. I love Craig Krenzel. Like great story, but he was not.
But it embodied a Jim Tressel team.
Yes, yeah. And I like forever will love that team and that title. And but I just think like Alabama, like they were a villain in sorts, but they were like in some ways a respectable villain, at least with Nick Saban. Like Nick Saban's the GOAT. Like,
well, yeah, he was the best, but you hated to admit it, so that made him the villain.
Right. But like he was like a respectable villain. Whereas I think Miami, a lot of people look at Miami as like, we just want them gone. And yeah, I just think it is good for college football to have a villain.
Yeah. It is good. Well, we're not going to do villains in this segment, Zach. We're going to do winners and losers. Maybe we can do villains and heroes of the Big Ten at some point. That's a good idea for a segment. But we'll do our transfer portal winners and losers so far. So the transfer portal is not over. Obviously, we just got done talking about teams that are going after certain players that could come to the school. So we're not talking about players added yet. Right now, we are talking about we're talking about players who have been lost from their team, who have departed, and we're looking at if the team is a winner or a loser based on that. Now, Zach and I have put together 2 winners. We have a neutral, and then we have 3 losers in the Big Ten. We're not trying to be overly negative. We're just looking at it and saying this is what we think. So, Zach, should we start with positivity? Should we start with the winners?
Yeah, let's positivity. Absolutely.
Okay. Everybody was talking about it in the chat earlier, so let's just start with it. I know Illinois lost Josh McCray, but they held on to Luke Altmaier. Luke Altmaier said no to Tennessee. I think that's a huge thing for them. Tennessee fans were very confident they were going to get Luke Altmaier. I'm calling Illinois a winner. I'm also calling Illinois a winner because my guy Sonny Verma pointed it out. Illinois used to have the MAC coming after their roster. Now they've got the SEC coming after their roster and coming after their recruits. Now, they did lose Josh McCray and they did lose their recruit Victor Singleton. However, I think that speaks volumes about where this Illinois program is at. I think it speaks to Brett Bielema's coaching, and I think it speaks to the future of this Illinois team. So I know in the immediate, it does stink to lose Josh McCray, but you don't lose Luke Altmaier. You have running back depth behind Josh McCray, so I think that's a good situation. Overall, I would call Illinois a winner in this situation. Agree or disagree, Zach?
Agree. Absolutely agree. Can we just point out that Illinois lost Josh McCray to Georgia? Like one of the premier running back schools. And so if you're going to lose someone, they didn't lose one of their better running backs to to your point, to UMass. They lost him to an SEC power and a national championship favorite. Like,
right.
Good for them. Like, good for Georgia and kind of good for Illinois. Like, it stinks that they lost him, but it's like, I think to your point, Illinois has raised its profile. And not only that, but their trigger man, their captain, he believes in Illinois so much that he is not going to be tempted by more money, by maybe a better offer down in SEC land.
Well, not only that, but he's not going to be tempted by the SEC. I talked about it when I did the show. Like, the Tennessee is used to using the leverage of like, come play in the SEC, right? Like better
Yep.
competition, going to get you better ready for the NFL, yada yada yada, all that stupid stuff that they say. And it's like, not now. Like I was telling people in that video, I was like, this is why you root for your conference. This is why you want your conference to be good, because I realize Illinois fans probably think Ohio State and Michigan winning the national championship does nothing for you in the moment, but later on, when the SEC starts trying to make the play of come to the SEC where real football is played, you're like, get out of here. Your best team in the conference just lost in the first round to Notre Dame, who hasn't won a major bowl game in 20 plus years. They just lost to Notre Dame, and you're in the national championship champion just spanked one of your teams in their first game and then beat the other team by 2 scores. So, like this, it doesn't really hold up. Now, does the SEC have their argument for a deeper, more depth in the conference? Sure, but that's not going to win anybody over. Like, nobody's going to the SEC because they have more depth, right? The Big Ten tried to make this argument for years, and it was always shot down. The same thing's going to happen with the SEC. If the SEC doesn't get back to winning, national championships, they're going to say, oh, look at our depth. And it's like, nobody cares. Nobody cares if your second string defensive tackle is good or not to win a national championship. Is your goal to go 9-3, or is your goal to win a national championship? I think it's to win a national championship.
There is an irony that you just used the second string defensive tackle analogy when we were just saying that Ohio State really needs a second string defensive tackle. But
yeah, but anyway. At the end of the day, is the second string defensive tackle for Ohio State going to be the difference between going 12-0 and 8-4?
No. I'm just picking on you.
No, but I know what you're saying. It is funny.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I think it is a good reminder that Illinois, it's not been a blip, right? This is not they're not a blip, and, folks in the chat maybe disagree with this, but as long as Bielema is there, this program is ascending, and I'm excited to see what happens. And I think, again, Luke Altmaier staying is a big deal.
It is. It's a huge deal. John says Illinois is a joke. Nobody cares about their program, and nobody will. Harsh words from John. John, very harsh. Very harsh of you. I will say, if you feel that way, you are more than inclined to feel that way. However, this show does not feel that way. So we cannot share that sentiment with you, John. So congratulations to your feelings if you feel that way, but we cannot agree with that sentiment. We apologize. Actually, I don't apologize. No.
I'm just going to say, John, I appreciate you're in the chat. I'm just going to say the first folks that ever responded to me as a podcaster were Illinois fans. They care about their program. And that was when Bert first started, and like they care, and they care even more now. So
I truthfully care for every program in the Big Ten. Now, I will stay true to my fandom, and I will not like my rivals, but I think I will be fair to them. I don't think me rooting against them or doesn't really affects the podcast, because I can still find, a way to be fair, but that's just me. All right. Next winner, Zach, who is our other winner that we have?
Goodness, we're going to be homers. But like, if you're going to go with who they didn't lose, like Ohio State didn't lose anybody. They lost their backup long snapper. That's pretty good.
And their punter, like third string punter.
And by the way, they had a spring game and nobody left. Nobody got poached from their spring game.
That's what I was going to say. If people come in here and say like, oh, well, there were other Big Ten teams that didn't lose any scholarship players too. Okay, I get that. But what has been the discussion with the transfer portal over the past couple of years? It's that teams can't remain elite because they can't keep their depth and they can't keep their talent because they go into the transfer portal. Ohio State just put all of their depth and all of their talent on display for 2 hours on the television, which is what everybody said you can't do. And then you have everybody saying, well, this is going to be a huge transfer portal. Joel Klatt said it, because everybody can get paid right before the house settlement comes down. Meanwhile, Ohio State didn't lose anybody. So, yes, maybe another team didn't lose anybody in the transfer portal, any scholarship players. But I think if you're looking at it within the context, it is an impressive thing that Ohio State did not lose a single scholarship player in the transfer portal with how much talent they have in their depth, with how they put on a spring game, and with this discussion about how much teams need to keep their depth and how that can really be a hindrance
Yeah.
on teams being able to remain elite or not. So we won't spend too much time on it, but I do think that's a huge thing. Do you have any other thoughts on Ohio State before we move on, Zach?
Well, I think one position group in particular is wide receiver, right? Like they could have lost Mylan Graham after that spring game.
Right.
Because he's not going, like, he might be wide receiver 3, maybe, or wide receiver 3 or 4. I think my guess is he's 4 because of Ennis and Tate. Maybe he's even 5 with Quincy Porter. We're not sure. But he's going to be a sophomore next year. And you're like, oh, like he's a potential transfer risk. But he's like, I'm going to stick around to be developed by the best wide receiver coach in college football. So,
right. And Mish, you are exactly correct. Penn State didn't lose any starters. I'm not saying that Penn State's not a winner. I'm just saying, like, for what I said, the reasons I said, I think Ohio State stands out a little bit more in that way. Penn State, though, they still did a really good job keeping a hold of their starters. Doesn't mean they're definitely not a loser in our book. We don't have them down as a loser by any means.
Yeah.
So, but I think, like I said, I tried to explain. To me, Ohio State stood out in another way that was a little bit more. So, neutral. UCLA, Zach, what are your thoughts? Winner, loser? They lose Joey Aguilar. I know we're not really talking about players they added as much, but this one is directly a reflect of the player that they added. So I feel like there needs to be at least a little bit of a conversation here. We talked about, who won the trade, that kind of stuff. Are you neutral on UCLA? You think they're a winner? Think they're a loser? What are your thoughts?
It's hard. I think neutral is probably the right call. Like they did lose other players. Like they lost TJ Harden, Isaiah Patterson, Joshua Swift, so they've lost some guys. I don't know how crucial they are, but they've lost some guys. I think it really depends on how you view Nico. And like, because
as an upgrade or not, you mean?
Yeah. And I know we're not talking about players that they added, but to your point, the Joey Aguilar loss is directly tied to Nico coming in. And so you almost have to weigh it. And so I just think it's too hard to tell. I don't know if they won or lost yet. I think we can only tell with their particular situation. I think you can only tell in 6 months.
For sure. All right, let's get to the losers, Zach. First one, I'll let you take this one over. Maryland.
I'm sorry, Larry. I'm sorry.
Larry would agree with us, I think.
I think so too, but I'm still sorry. You can't lose as many players as you did. And again, we talked about it with Illinois losing guys to big name teams. But I think the difficulty is Illinois lost one guy to Georgia, and they lost one recruit to SEC land. Maryland lost a lot, man. Like Caleb Wheatland's going to Auburn. LaVon Johnson's going to Texas. Kellen Wyatt's going to Indiana. Therese Davis is going to Ole Miss. They lost several offensive linemen. And I think the big thing, the smoke coming out of the program is before the transfer portal, I think they were excited that they might have a team that could really compete this year. And like all the momentum has kind of been sucked out with that. So I just think whatever momentum you had, especially like the buzz around Malik Washington at quarterback, I just think all that goes out the window, especially because they lost so many offensive linemen. I think they lost 3 offensive linemen in the portal so far.
Yeah, which losing offensive line depth for them, a major issue. And on the show, Larry commented just how much, they needed to keep as well. So Yeah, they lost a number of guys in here. Therese Davis, and then two linebackers, Caleb Wheaton and Kellen Wyatt. Wyatt will be a good addition there for Indiana. I don't think he'll be a star player or anything like that, but he'll be a good addition and definitely help them in some ways. So they didn't. Uh, I don't know. I don't want to say that, but yeah, I mean they lost a number of guys who entered into the portal. Therese Davis, defensive lineman, Levon Johnson, Javen James, offensive tackle. They did lose a quarterback named Robert Long. I apologize. I did not remember that Robert Long left. But yeah, a lot of trenches, and we've said it time and time again. Like this is what Maryland needs: is they need more trenches. So
Yep. Yeah. It's brutal.
yeah. All right. Next loser I have is Michigan State. They lost a number of guys in this cycle that, I mean, I have no idea if they were going to be like, star players for them or not, but they've just lost a number of guys in the spring transfer portal cycle. Anthony Jones was an edge that they lost. Big name was Dylan Tatum, cornerback that they lost. That's not one you want to lose. And then one freshman wide receiver. No, two. Sorry, Austin Clay and Jalen Brown. I mean, you don't want to lose freshmen that quick. I kind of question what's going on there a little bit, but yeah, Michigan State losing those guys, it's not a great situation. We'll see what Jonathan Smith can do. Maybe they lost him for a reason. We just don't know, but it doesn't seem like a good situation. So, Zach, you want to address the Purdue there, because you had some thoughts on Purdue before we came on.
Yeah, I think it's hard to figure out Purdue because I think, yes, they lost a lot, but they've also gotten a lot. And again, we're only judging based on who they lost. But at this point, I feel like for Purdue, you just got to figure out who you are and who like. I think Philip actually has the best comment here. Purdue rebuild could take a long time. And so when you're as desperate as Purdue and you're trading bodies, it's kind of like I think they're a loser because of the reality that they're Purdue right now. They're where they're at. I think they're trying to make their team the best they can. So, yeah, this is the best comment of the night for sure.
Hey, just leave that one up there.
Yeah.
Philip, comment of the day there. He said loser category: SEC, ACC, NCAA, ESPN pollsters. You're exactly right. So, yeah, they did lose. It looks like 5 guys. On3 has. There might be more on 24/7, but typically On3 has the main guys that are lost. They lost an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, and a couple wide receivers, or 4 guys. I apologize, but they did add an offensive tackle. We'll have more on that later. And yeah, Mich losing Max Clare is terrible. That was in the winter window though. We're just talking spring for now.
Yep.
But yeah, that and Dylan Thieneman, that kills. That hurts.
Yeah, if we were doing the spring or the winter portal, Purdue absolutely lost.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, with
100%.
spring, they have not lost the impact players that they lost in the winter for sure.
Troy loved the loss of Claire though. Peak the Ohio State logo there. He loved it. All right, Zach, last one, and then we'll be done here. And I hesitate to even mention this team because I feel like
don't hesitate. Don't hesitate.
I feel like we're kind of kicking them when they're down, and I did pick them to beat Alabama in our upset draft, and that is looking worse and worse by the day. That's okay. I will survive. But Wisconsin, I don't know if Tanner Kozel and Mark Hamper were actually like the biggest losses in the world. I mean, Tanner Kozel went back into the portal and he was still rated really high. The thought coming out of that was that he wasn't good enough to play for Wisconsin. I don't know if that's the case. I tend to think Tanner Kozel was probably good enough to play for Wisconsin, but maybe not. I mean, there were Wisconsin insiders saying like, "Oh, he's going to go back to the MAC." Well, he went to Houston. I mean, it's not like SEC or Big Ten football, but it's still Big 12. Like that's not the MAC, you know. So I mean, more than anything here, it's like it's a lose-lose situation because you lose Mark Hamper and Tanner Kozel, and it's like, okay, you lost them like if you lost them because they weren't as good as the other guys in the room, it's like, what is your talent evaluation? Because that's just a
Mhm.
complete miss and a complete waste of your time that you sent people out to go watch these guys and to bring them in and spend training staff and everything on them, and they weren't good enough. Or if they just were not culture guys, or they left because they weren't in on everything that was going on, like that's like just as bad. So I don't know. Like I
Yeah.
fail to see a positive here for Tanner Kozel and Mark Hamper. I do think the wide receiver room is better than maybe some people give him credit for. So I kind of believe in that a little bit more with Mark Hamper, Trey Kikamunga, Kikamunga,
Trek.
Trek K, him and Jaden Ballard. I think those guys are going to be legit for Wisconsin this season, and Vinny Anthony as well. I think those guys are going to be
Mhm.
legit for him this season, but I don't know. The Tanner Kozel situation is just it's a weird one to me, and it leads me to believe they're probably losers in this situation.
Yeah. It's Trek Kekahuna.
Kakahuna. I wanted to put an M in there. No H.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kekahuna.
Listen, I
Um,
just learned how to say Iamaleava. Okay,
you
give me some time.
you've done excellently tonight on your
Yes, thank you.
pronunciations. I give
Thank
you
you.
give you a lot of
Trek
props for
K,
that.
as he will be known from
Trek
a
K.
good amount of time here.
Um,
Your thoughts on Wisconsin, Zach?
dude, I Luke Fickle might be my new Mike Loxley, man. Which I hate because I love Fickle. But at some point, like what you said was exactly what I thought when just as I was thinking about this, is I'm like, how did Fickle miss so bad on his transfer guys? And I know it wasn't all of them, but like they were excited about Kozel. They were excited about Hamper. And it just,
I mean, there were Wisconsin fans saying he was the best tight end in the Big Ten next year.
well, apparently their talent evaluation's off too.
But like, also, don't you think like in your room too? Like, shouldn't you have a good enough talent evaluation of the guys in your room as well? Like,
Yeah.
you are you just expecting less of them as well? I don't know. Like to me, I was hoping for, and maybe there was an issue here with bringing in Jeff Grimes, and maybe Jeff Grimes didn't know the town evaluation. Like I'm willing to hear that argument if a Wisconsin fan is willing to make it. But if I'm a Wisconsin fan, like there's been a lot of excuses over the time there made for Luke Fickle, not made by Luke Fickle. I'm not saying Luke Fickle's doing that. I'm saying
No.
like if you're a Wisconsin fan, you kind of got to continue to try and make excuses to make you feel better about Luke Fickle. At some point, he might just not be the guy. And that stinks for Wisconsin fans if that's the case, because you moved on from Paul Chryst and everything else for him. But if he's just not the guy, he's just not the guy. Like it is what it is, and you're gonna have to move on from him. If they go 3-9 this season, I know they just gave him an extension, but they're gonna have
It's
to move on
over.
from him.
It's
Yeah,
over. And I think that the sad thing is, I think you've heard me say this, and I know other people have too. Like at some point, you are who you are until you prove otherwise, right?
yeah,
Luke Fickle to me, I think he can coach, but I remember vividly, and it was one game, but I remember vividly the Cincinnati game against Alabama in the playoff, where it just felt like they played not to lose the entire game. It's like, I just don't want to get blown out. And to me, that was like, man, I'm not sure you're ever going to rise to the occasion.
right.
And I kind of feel that way right now with Wisconsin, where I just don't have the confidence that he's coming into this season that he thinks that he can win. And that's an overstatement. I'm realizing that's an overstatement based on what we're talking about, but I'm like, man, with every decision you make here in the off season and every recruit you bring in, when you have been this mediocre to bad over the past 2 years, then everything's going to get microanalyzed. But all the microanalysis is this is not good.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not impressed with his in-game coaching right now. Not impressed by his talent evaluation, not impressed by his recruiting, not impressed by what he's doing in the transfer portal. Like, it's not just a loss for the spring window. It's a loss as you look at the program and you're like, you guys feel lifeless right now.
Mish makes a good point. It says Wisconsin played Penn State and Oregon tough. They definitely have potential. And I would agree with you, Mish. I just haven't seen it consistently. Like,
Yeah.
they played Oregon tough and then got blown out by Nebraska.
Yeah.
Like,
Can I
and I know that was after what's his name was fired. The offensive coordinator Phil Longo was fired, so that does affect things. But we've also seen teams before lose a coach or a coordinator, and like they play with even more enthusiasm afterward. Right?
yeah.
Nebraska last year. Nebraska, they didn't fire him. He just got demoted. Marcus Satterfield. They bring in Dana Altman. I felt like that offense had new life. That offense felt like something new, and they were on a losing streak when that happened.
Yeah.
You fire Phil Longo and somebody else takes over for him, and it feels like there's just not as much juice. Like you're building off a great game against Oregon, but it doesn't feel like they're seeing it that way. It felt like they were seeing it as, well, we lost to Oregon. Season's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So any other thoughts?
well, I'm just going to say, because I appreciate that thought by Mish, but who else did we say that for all the time? Scott Frost. And I hate to go down that road, but everybody, what did people say about 2021? Nebraska's the best 3-9 team in the country because they would play teams close. And you're like, they're almost there. This is my wake up call to Wisconsin fans. If that's how if they start with a close loss to Alabama and then a loss after that to Maryland, and you're sitting there, but we almost beat Bama, don't be fooled. It's over. Like, it's over. Like, you can't count. If you want to be where you want to be, you cannot count close win or close losses. I don't care if they're Alabama. I don't care if they're Penn State. I don't care if they're Oregon.
Well, you can count them in year one, right?
Yeah, not
and
in year
one,
two.
When you're building things, you can count them then. Year two, you can count them if you come out and play with your hair on fire and do really well the next week. I don't think you can count them if you don't play well the next week.
Right. They're not a mulligan anymore. Right. Like, you can, that I think I appreciate it. You can lose close and still and then win the games you're supposed to and win some coin flips. But if all you're doing is losing close and then losing to the teams that you should beat, like, what are we doing? Like, Wisconsin just broke their bowl game streak. Like, that's the worst season that Wisconsin's had in 30 years?
Yeah, about 30 years. I don't hear Wisconsin fans talking about that very much. I would have thought they'd be railing Luke Fickell for that. Yeah. But they don't go on about that as much as I thought they would. So, all right. Well, those are our winners and losers. To recap, Illinois, Ohio State, winners, other winners in there as well, but Ohio State seemed to stick out with the spring game and keeping all their scholarship players, everything like that. Penn State could also be one, didn't lose any starters, as Mish pointed out. That could be up there as well. Any team that really didn't lose anybody in the spring window, that's a big thing there. UCLA, kind of neutral in this situation. We'll talk more about them when we talk about who they add. And then the three losers, Maryland, Michigan State, Wisconsin. So, all right, Zach, I think that was a good episode for us here. We have the call-in show tomorrow night, correct?
Yeah, tomorrow night.
What do we say, 8 or 9 o'clock?
8 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock tomorrow night, call-in show. I'll have to find time to mow my lawn before that. My lawn needs mowed. So, anything you want to say about the call-in show or anything before we get out of here, Zach?
Just if you want to be a part of it, memberships, make sure you check it out. We'd love to meet you, talk with you, talk some ball with you guys. Talk about other things too. We talk about food. I like talking
Whatever you
about
want.
food. Yeah.
And I do want to make this clarification. We are not trying to like bribe people and say like we are that great that you need to pay money to talk to us. We did a call-in show for an Ohio State channel at one point, and some of the guests we got were just trolls, people that were
Yeah.
just coming in to try and be inappropriate and stuff like that. And we just don't want to deal with that. So we just
Yeah.
want to talk to you, not have to worry about if it's some troll that's trying to, you know, do this or that or the other on the call-in show. We just want to talk to you guys. So
Yeah.
and it gives you more time as well because we know that you're the most dedicated fans or listeners of the channel as well. So we don't have to bring you on and cut you off after 5 minutes. You can actually come on, talk for 10, 15, 20 minutes, or most of the time, I think Terry came on one time and he talked for like 40 minutes. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
That was good.
kind of the benefit of it all. So,
Yeah.
all right, Zach, appreciate you. Robot lawnmower, Philip says, believe me, I wish I had a robot lawnmower. But my robot vacuum broke within like the first year. So was my robot lawnmower going to break that fast too? I don't know. I don't think I can trust it.
Yeah. Don't trust robots.
Zach, anti-robots. Villain to Zach is the robots.
Actually, I like anything that makes my life easier. So I'm probably a big hypocrite there. So
And then also Thursday night NFL Draft live watch along show. So join me and Jeff for that. Well, we already have Big Ten Casual coming on for that one. Casual Big Ten is going to be there. Eric is going to be there. Gonna work out getting some other people on there as well. So come check us out. We're gonna watch the draft live together, commenting on everything going on, and definitely commenting on the draft for the Big Ten and everything as well. So thanks for being here, everybody. We appreciate it. Have a good one.